Welcome to the February 7th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting, the City of Summerside City Council. I'm going to call the meeting to order, it being 5:19 p.m. and call for an approval of the agenda as presented before you. Motion from Councillor Ramsey, second Councillor Gallant. Anyone opposed to the agenda as proposed? I am going to, before we do that, put one small note. At the end of tonight's meeting, we'll have a secondary short in-camera discussion on staffing matters. Okay. And the agenda will be carried. I also will apologize in advance. I've had this cold that will not seem to go away. So I have a halls in my mouth at the same time. I hope it doesn't annoy anybody. The land on which we're gathered today is the traditional and unceded territory of the Abogway Mi'kmaq First Nation. Land reconciliation is a small but important step on the path towards reconciliation. Any conflict of interest declarations from members of council? Hearing none. Also note that Councillor Snow is joining us from Timmins, Ontario, in the speakers somewhere, and Councillor Morrison sends regrets. In the cloud, exactly. We'll move right along to item 5, the recommendation for parking on Summer Street by Parkside School. And Chief Sinclair and CAO McFarland.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. So staff recently had a meeting with a number of representatives over parking and general transportation and busing issues around Parkside School. Had a great conversation with Principal Martin, representatives from the school board. We had bus drivers, representatives from the union, representatives from the Home and School Foundation at Parkside, and it was a really great example of actually getting all the kind of key players around a table to try to figure out a solution to an issue. For anyone that's been on, and you see on the screen, the area in question that we're talking about on Summer Street, in the morning, and especially after school, the area can be quite a quagmire of cars parked, kids crossing the street, buses trying to load and trying to get out of the area safely. So the school board, the public schools branch, and Principal Martin approached us to say, you know, is there anything that we can do from a city perspective that would help the issue? The group came to the conclusion that the best course from the city's perspective would be to mark, as you see on the map, that whole area a no parking zone, kind of no parking, no stopping either zone, Monday to Friday, September to June, while school is in session. The recommendation was in your package. That's essentially what the recommendation is. The purpose is to improve the traffic flow, and it's really around the safety to the children and giving the bus drivers an opportunity to be able to get in and out of the area safely. And that's basically it. Is there any questions?
Well, it's not a question, but it's something I think about 2 years ago, Chief Walker, that we dealt with 3 years ago. We were up there for many meetings, and same problem. Did the same things, really, put signage up, and I think police services even wrote a letter and gave it to the school, and they distributed it to the parents, and please don't stop, you know, like it's dangerous for the children, and we've got to do something, and I'm hoping that, you know, maybe this works, but are we going back next year and kind of doing the same thing again? And that's just my concern.
Yeah, there were, you're absolutely correct. We have been talking about the issue for a while. There are still a few parking spots that are quote, legal in there right now. One additional change, I guess, that this would, the signage would reiterate to parents that not only is it a no parking zone, it's also a no drop-off zone, no stopping, right? Because often people will say, well, no, I'm not parking, I'm just stopped here for 30 seconds while my kids jump out of the front door, right? Police were at the meeting that we had, we talked about the need for more enforcement, especially in the beginning, and police are willing and able to do that for a certain period of time. And you're absolutely correct. A communication and education piece from the school to the parents is also going to be important.
I'll just,
No, I was last.
It's okay, we're all
Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, certainly familiar with this as a parent that had a child there for 6 years. I guess my only question would be, or questions to Chief, what would your what would your recommendation be, I guess, as an alternative, for the drop-offs and the pickups and, like the daytime, I'm here to get my kid to go to the dentist type thing. Is there a...
Well, I think this is one of the alternatives we came up with. Now, I know we had this discussion back when Councillor Ramsey and I talked back in 2019, and at that time the issue was, of course, there was a crossing guard at that location, but at that time there was discussion, should the crossing guard, perhaps move forward closer to the school and move the traffic forward and so on and so forth. The only problem we saw with that is a crossing guard does not have authority, okay, and it would be very difficult for that person to go up and tell people to move along. I could see all kinds of problems with that. And at that time, what we had in that discussion, we discussed about putting signage up, and it would represent the school board as well as the police, saying, okay, please, for safety, for public safety, children's safety, that we would, we did not want people parking and stopping. So of course, the only problem is we didn't really have a whole lot of tools to deal with it when there was still parking in the area. So after a discussion the other day, we came up with the recommendation of making this area no parking. There is certainly going to be an enforcement component to it. And of course, we'll have our traffic section, of course, deal with that in the mornings and the afternoon. So we're proposing this. I don't really see another alternative at the present time.
And if this is something that's recommended by police and school, I'm supportive, 100%. I'm just wondering where parents will now drop off their children and pick up their children.
We did have that discussion. It's going to force that drop off to be slightly further away from the school. There are parking spots on Green Street on both east and west of Summer. It will certainly likely have people dropping kids off further down Summer Street. We also discussed the fact that there is a parking lot in front of SIS that's a shared parking lot for Summerside Intermediate and Parkside. There's also a parking lot and a roundabout just north of Parkside that is available for drop-offs as well, and that many parents use right now. Well, I mean that's the point of that.
it's easy, it's
Of-
just
of
you
that
whip
area,
around and
right?
you go, yeah.
In terms of I am just here at 10 o'clock in the morning to pick up my child from school. Parents would have the option of parking in either one of those parking lots, or potentially stopping quickly and having little Johnny run out to the car. I mean, the enforcement for the most part is going to be, the active enforcement from our police are going to be in the morning and the pickup times, right?
I think it'd be enforcement and education to the police service.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just always enforcement, it's education as well.
Okay, I guess as well, I've attended several meetings with regards to this with the school, and I'm pleased to see it being looked at. I guess my one question is just that whole point of, when parents are dropping off children. I've had a number of calls where there have been near misses, children getting out and then a car not seeing a child or whatnot. So I'm just wondering if that public awareness piece would be really important to make sure that people know the rules ahead of time, kind of thing. But I think, I'm so glad to see that something is being looked at for people.
Okay, I'm just wondering, okay, so a one-way, has it ever been considered making that street a one-way? And what was the reason that it wasn't? Like, what is the pros and cons for that?
We did have some level of discussion around that at this meeting. And it was determined that if we had the no parking in that area, then, especially the bus drivers told us at that meeting that if we had the no parking, that would be the best case for them. The other piece is buses do, when they come into SIS, have to turn, buses come off Central or off Beaver and actually not very far, but
Turn
do
left.
come in,
Yep.
come left into Summer Street. And I guess potentially, we did have some level of discussion around the fact that making it one way all the time would potentially be taking the sledgehammer to the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like, so,
Okay.
from the bus driver's perspective, they communicated to us that they saw this as sufficient, at least to try.
Okay, I just have a few more things. So so we're sort of going to push everybody back off onto Green and Summer? Is that Summer Street? Yeah. So is there, there's sidewalks there for drop-off? There's sufficient sidewalks there for drop-off, so that's not an issue. And I'm just wondering, it sort of goes back to that one-way thing, and Ian, you're here from the school board. How many buses are parked there? Like, how many buses are we? Do you have like 4 or 5?
No, more than that.
For Parkside?
Yeah.
For just Parkside?
Probably
Okay.
come in there and drop off.
So there would be no consideration of making that the same as we had to do over for SIS and sort of making that part of Beaver just for buses? There is, that could not be considered.
In the morning, there wouldn't be 10 there one time.
Right, it's staggered,
In the afternoon, there's probably 6 buses
right.
that are parked there.
I'm just thinking, you know how we sort of pulled the issue off of Central and made the bus lane for SIS? Could something like that be done here? Like, I mean, I was noticing today, I know that they don't want to lose any more green space, but that corner there of Green and Beaver, like having your bus lane come down here more just to sort of like keep the kids all sort of to one area, like could something like that be looked at?
I really don't think there's room.
Right. I know, it's hard to tell when you're like looking at the little map, but. And is there any consideration to just blocking off the street to just traffic from like 8 to 9 and 3 till 3:30 every day? To like public traffic, just buses can go in and parents pick up on Green?
There was some discussion around that, and the group came to the kind of consensus that that wasn't necessary at this time. We also have to remember that there are residents who live there and have driveways and have their access as well. So the group that met thought that this was a sufficient step, right?
Yep.
And, you know, a year from now, we may determine that this wasn't sufficient, or
Yep.
we may determine that we should try something else. There was also some level of discussion between the responsibility of the public schools branch versus the responsibility of the municipality to provide a safe drop-off zone, right?
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Gord. I was gonna ask about the one-way, and Carrie had asked about it, so that's fine. And it looks good, but I'm really concerned with, do you say you have a designated drop-off?
Not within that area of Summer Street.
No, I know, but we're just pushing the problem down the street, is what it seems to me. Is there any way we could put a designated drop-off up by where the parking lot is on Beaver?
Then they take the sidewalk
and then they take the sidewalk down. I'm just
Well-
concerned, like, if,
The issue,
my sister-in-law lives in the corner there.
Yep.
And I'm there often, and I see the congestion that's there sometimes, especially the afternoon. But I have a real concern with the four-way stop there and the congestion that we're putting young kids on the street. I'd prefer if there was up closer where they could go on the parking lot over to the sidewalks right there. If there was any way we could have a designated, you know where the blue line ends there? Well, just above that. On Beaver, the blue line,
yes,
where the sidewalk is.
Yeah.
If there was a designated stop there,
cars do park and stop there now and drop kids off.
And that's okay.
and that's okay.
'cause
But what I'm saying is they stop all over the place. But now they only have one or two places to stop besides down here. I just thought if you had a designated drop stop, or stop, drop off.
The issue at the end of the day is there are 30 or 40 people that are all kind of clamoring to get as close to the school as possible.
Yeah.
We've also had discussions, and I think we likely will, take a look at moving the crossing guard that we currently have at Spring and Green, and try them up at that intersection as well and see if that helps.
Okay.
Bruce, I think in all fairness, there seems to be a lot of places for drop-off, like all along Green Street, there's a sidewalk there. So if the children are getting out, if they get out at that roundabout, there's no street there, they're good to go there. If they get out in the parking lot at SIS, they're good to go there, they don't have to go on the street. My concern is when they do come around that corner and the cars are double parked, and that's the problem, and the kids on the inside are running out, and then the cars are coming up, you know? So, and that's been the problem. So if we can eliminate that, and I think I have to give credit to Principal Nick, because every year he's worried about his kids, and he continuously, you know, is working to make sure that they're safe. And I just wanted to put a shout out to him as well as police services. But I'm thinking if we can control that corner somehow, Bruce, that we.
I'm just concerned with the drop-offs.
Yeah, and I guess if there wasn't sidewalks there, Bruce, I'd be like, oh, where are we gonna
Oh, I
put
know,
them? But
sidewalks everywhere.
tons of sidewalks, right?
Sidewalks
So,
everywhere, isn't it?
yeah, there is, yeah.
The issue as it was expressed to us from the public schools branch was most acutely around the safety of the children around the buses. Right? And if that area is clear of people parked and doing drop-offs, then the buses can safely enter and exit without the worry of the children running out in front of them, right? There's most certainly still a need for proper crosswalk etiquette by the drivers and education to the children and crossing the sidewalks.
And the parents, you know, like some letters to the parents and, yeah, all those things, yeah.
Just one final thing. I mean, I guess I'm glad that it's a problem that's being brought to us sort of unanimously by folks, and it's not one that it's not a perceived problem that we have trying to ask you for solutions on it. I guess the one thing in the back of my mind, and we probably won't know until we see if, should this go ahead, is not necessarily the drop-offs, because when you're dropping off your child, it's typically you're out quick and you're gone, but it's the pickup at the end of the day where the parents are looking for somewhere to stop, you know, sometimes a half an hour before school's out. That's when it begins, and they're trying to get as close as possible. And now it'll be sort of interesting to see what comes of that, especially for the younger kids, where the parents, you know, they want to be in sight of the exits and that type of thing. But
And in terms of that, we're only eliminating 4 legal spaces. Right. So it's not like we're eliminating a whole slew of current places, but as it happens, right now, the first 4 people get there, and then as soon as somebody exits, somebody else is
Yeah.
trying to gerrymander their way into that spot, right? So.
Thanks very much.
So that will move forward to council at the monthly meeting for resolution, and then we will,
actually,
if it passes, then we'll erect the appropriate signage and
Yeah, sorry, somebody actually messaged me on this when they saw it on the agenda. Has there been any opposition? This one particular person said they had some concerns, but is it generally supported by?
It was
The groups that-
unanimously
Okay.
supported among the group that were at the meeting. Tonight, in fairness, would be the first time that anybody in the public would be hearing about the proposal, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, it was on the agenda that was publicly
Yep.
sent out, so I
Yep.
just, yeah, okay.
Concern, and they know that certainly members of council, there have been a number of meetings, so I think hopefully people will see it as it's starting to have something concrete happen.
We did at Elm Street, right?
Will notice go to the parents by way through the children at school? Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, great. We'll see a resolution at our council meeting in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you, Ian. Thanks, Gordon. All right, we're going to move on to item 6. Also, just a quick welcome, obviously, to our Summerside MLAs, the trifecta. MLA Howard, Altas, and Lund. Thank you. Welcome and thank you for joining us here tonight, and anybody joining us in the on YouTube, on the internet. Obviously, welcome to you as well. The next item, this is, I guess I would sort of state this is a non-traditional way of bringing this forward to council. I was contacted by the individual, Jolene Clow, who has put together the community fridge with support of all sorts of people in the community and with support of this council with respect to finding a location, providing electric connections. Jolene has some anxiety to presenting in larger groups. Basically, I spoke with her and said I would bring this item forward and this request to council, and I will do my best to answer any questions if you have any, and we can certainly put them together and continue that discussion with Jolene going forward. So,
I'm assuming she's watching then online.
I think so. I let her know. I don't know if she's watching online or not. I did let her know that I would be bringing this forward. So I will simply read mostly what she has said. That the support from the community businesses and individuals has been fantastic on the community fridge. It's utilized daily, not only by the homeless community, but those who are struggling and a lot of seniors who live on a budget. The challenge so far has been with a few individuals in the community taking hundreds of dollars worth of donated meat anytime someone gets dropped off. To address this, people now, the way they're working around it at this time is people now are waiting in the parking lot for the shoppers. So the way the community fridge works, either Jolene or volunteers go out and shop for perishable and non-perishable items. And now people are waiting in the parking lot for shoppers, and the shoppers then handing out some of the food directly to people. This is not how the fridge is supposed to operate. The fridge is supposed to operate on the premise of anonymity, so that both donors and users can access the foods that are there in a way that is anonymous. So the request is, what is being requested is for a alternate location for the existing fridge to a more visible, secure area to help prevent or reduce people stealing from the fridge. Also request that it be located in a well-lit space. Yeah, you can listen. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And the relocation of doing so would help more food go to those in need. It would act as a deterrent to those who are visiting the fridge repeatedly to take food from the most valuable food multiple times a day. Request, I think the original location request was right across the street in the fire hall parking lot, but that didn't work out for parking and I think emergency reasons. So the request has been to be in an area, I think, I will speak generally visible from perhaps the police station, fire department, where there is some more activity as to act as a deterrent. And the concern is that the community may no longer donate to the fridge if thefts continue. A couple of questions I did ask Jolene that I thought you might ask, and I'll just state them, and then you guys can have a conversation. One of the issues around loitering, which is people hanging around the fridge. Right now it is, there are some people who hang around the fridge and wait to take things or socialize. The large parking lot where it currently is seen to encourage this. The need, from Jolene at least, is that the need is 1 to 2 parking spaces. The way this is supposed to work is people are supposed to come up, get what they need or drop off what they're delivering to somebody, and then go about the rest of their day. I asked her about the question of incorporation. Certainly that, perhaps being a lawyer, I'd certainly have always see potential issues with respect to liability, both from the city's perspective and then for individuals in the community. I was told that they are working on this, on incorporating the community fridge as a not-for-profit. I've certainly encouraged them to continue to do that. I think it is critical both from their perspective, just as general advice, and then also from our perspective, making sure that we have an entity who we're dealing with. They have advised they're working on it. There is a lawyer on their board that they are putting together, and expected that this work will take time. The last thing, a discussion I asked about as well, was being able to use the fridge as well to provide additional information to members of our community in need. So whether that be an idea of having a signboard on the side that would provide contact information for provincial housing supports, for addictions, mental health, that type of thing, so that it would be a point of contact, be able to direct people who may be in need to services that may be out there. To see it essentially as an opportunity to provide a community bulletin board. That is something that they have said, that Jolene has said she would like to see happen. So that is, like I said, this is an unusual way to bring this item to council. Normally it would come specifically from one, but I thought I offered to bring it to council to have a discussion and see where council wanted to go with respect to next steps for an alternate location. Councillor Ramsey?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's difficult to have this conversation without her here because we have questions that, we're not going to be able to get answered, unfortunately. I did receive a call the other day from Jonathan Vickerson, I believe, with the same request. He wanted to know why it wasn't in the place where it was supposed to be initially, which he figured it was that location right across the street where it was just put so the work could be done to the building before it was actually placed where council was going to decide where it was going to go. And I explained to him that it was just there for the work to be completed. And then we came to council with some discussion around the best place for it. The parking lot wasn't going to be the best place, as we all know, because of fire services and police services and emergency services. And as we see, there's many cars parked over there. There's people hanging around there all the time. They would have taken up a whole lot more parking spots than we could have afforded to lose. We couldn't even afford to lose the 2 or 3 that we were going to lose putting the building there. So that's kind of proved itself to be maybe a good decision that way. The other thing was to put it right in front of police services. And I said, our police services are very, very busy, as we all know. And for them to monitor that fridge would really not be their position because there's so much more going on in the city. And my suggestion to Jonathan was that maybe because there's many volunteers, they have many volunteers and many kind people who want to work with them. And I suggested if the fridge was open for a certain amount of hours each day, whether it be 9 to 3 or 3 to 7, whenever, because there's certain people that can't get there at certain times, and have someone in there, either 2-hour shifts, and not necessarily to hand out food, but to ensure that someone's not coming in to take all the food. You know, I think most people are fair. They're not going to go in there and take all the food. But if there's no one there to supervise it, and our police services can't be looking over to see who's going in there and who's not, I know that's just simply not going to be able to happen. So, you know, that was my suggestion to Jonathan when he called me, and I still feel very strongly about that. I think, like, the city has provided the location. That is our property that it's on. That's Summerside's property that it's on. And we are paying the electric bill, and, you know, we're helping out a lot. I know lots of councillors are trying to help out as much as they can as well, and you yourself, Mayor Dan. But I don't know that the answer is to take it over and put it in front of police services, because when that conversation was had, they said there were many people that wouldn't want to go to the fridge because they didn't want to go close to police services. So it's sort of hard to win, but I think in just sort of giving it back to Jolene and Jonathan, because I said I'd prefer to talk to Jolene at the time, and he said he was 50-50 with her now, that I could speak with him. So I was quite free in how I felt. So I really, my honest opinion on that is to get some volunteer situation set up, and also go for the nonprofit, get that set up. There's a few things I'd like to see them do to protect themselves, you know. And anyway, so that's certainly how I would like to see it. And then I think that, because, you know, right now, if the parking lot's full of people, then the fear is that there's no confidentiality in it right now as it stands. So, and I see things on Facebook that doesn't help me believe that it's confidential. So, you know, there should be some real rules and stipulations around the whole thing. And I know it's just getting started, and they're trying to work all those things out, and I'd be happy to help, but that's really my feeling on it.
I guess there's just a few things. You know, we've all heard there's issues, and like you said, starting up, there's going to be kinks in everything until you get it all worked out. There is reports of people selling the food. People are going there and they are selling the products. That would go along with what Jolene is saying about people waiting for the higher priced items to come and then pouncing on them. I do believe it should be in a more secure area. I know it has to be accessible from both sides to load things and store some things. But I understand. I don't think it should be on our police to monitor it, but I do feel that general area will be good. It will lessen the people hanging around waiting. That's my thought. You're not going to have people sitting there for hours waiting for the shoppers to come, hopefully. But like an area like, is it First at the back of the police station there, where, I mean, we have a dumpster, there's sort of like a generator thing at one end, and then there's the police station. Like, can that be configured in any way so that it's close, but it's not like right on top of the police station, so that it might deter some of this activity that's happening? And I feel that if it's a positive place and these people aren't waiting around, that possibly, like, people will still go. If they're in need, they're going to go. But I think it might help get rid of some of the people that are actually taking it and not needing it, or taking it and selling it. But like I said, again, I don't think it should be the police, but I think just the security that it's in that general area of City Hall, the fire department, and police services might give a little bit of security, so that if there was anything ever happened, it would just be a quick run across the street for somebody if they were in trouble. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm really glad to see that they're in the process of setting up the nonprofit, because I really believe that's the key to their success. We all know there's concerns down there. I've gone over a number, 2 or 3 times and sat there and have noticed something that I don't think is right. But I'd like to see this request be passed over to staff and maybe a couple of counselors or something to sit down with Jolene and see if we can, find out exactly where they are in setting up the board. Let's get together and see if we can come up with some kind of a solution, or what we can help them with and what our limits are.
Great, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, does anyone else want to say anything? And
I don't want to repeat some of the I certainly agree with the fact of working towards getting their NGO status. I think that will be really good. As far as, say, people who want to make donations, or there's that accountability piece. I think sometimes people have that question, and that will make it a lot easier, I think, for people to be able to donate and whatnot. And I just think the location where it's at, I've had some calls from residents about it. There are some calls that people feel like, for example, if somebody wants to go and they want to stay anonymous, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic, and that can sometimes be a barrier for people who really are struggling. And so I do think that, maybe having some of those things looked at where we look at all of the pieces, but understanding the fact that it's new and they're trying to work different things out, I think it will come together as people show that interest. So that's kind of where I'm at.
thank you, Counselor. Yeah, Counselor Snow, are you there? We've been having some audio issues, so if he is,
I am here, yeah.
yeah,
Can you hear
Counselor.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, we can. Yep. We're just asking
Yeah,
if you
no,
had anything to add.
I'm here. Basically, everybody has made all the points that I was going to make. I would say that I think originally the group were told that the police station, fire hall location, city hall location was the location they were going to be given. And I think that was through our former CAO and conversation he was having with the community fridge group. So I think that's what we're seeing happening here, is it's circling back around to that issue that they were told a certain location, and then after the fact it was either changed or discussed and moved to a different location. So that would be the only thing I would say.
Can I ask Corey a question?
Yeah, absolutely, Counselor. Yeah,
Corey.
Corey's question for you from Counselor Ramsey here.
Corey, hi.
Hi.
Hi, hope you're having fun there. Corey, so who told, I guess maybe Jolene at the time, that it could be located, because council wasn't involved in any of that, correct?
So my recollection from discussions the previous council had was that former CAO would have, through discussions with Jolene and whoever else was helping Jolene at the time, were told that I believe actually it might have even been in City Hall at one point, and then it was decided maybe across the street at the fire hall, and then ultimately it moved to the location behind the old Low Food, I will say, or Central Street. But it was definitely comments or discussion about having it in City Hall. I know personally I was at council meetings where that discussion was had. So
Yeah, but I think.
It was definitely a location that was mentioned to that group as a location they could utilize. And then after the fact, it was definitely decided to move to a different location for whatever reasons. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's how I recall it happening. So I think that's what we're seeing with the coming back to wanting it back to the original location now that they're seeing they're having issues or some issues at the current location.
So what was the original location? City Hall property or?
Yeah, originally it was in City Hall property, and not, I just don't want to get too far into the weeds, but originally it was on City Hall property, that's where we we're gonna have it, and there was some, concerns raised at that point by certain individuals of that location, and then it moved across, I think you're right, where it just got dropped off across the street from City Hall to get the work done, but, originally the area was around City Hall that was being discussed, and then ultimately it was moved to the Central Street location. So
Right,
that's how I
yeah.
recall it.
Yeah, if I remember
agree.
correctly, Corey, I think it was, well, we didn't hear anything, and there was going to be a community fridge come to City Hall. That's what was brought to council, right? Because we weren't in any of the conversations for the longest time about that, and then it came, there was a fridge coming to the parking lot at City Hall. Then it was decided that wouldn't probably work. Then it was going across the street. And then when council sat down and had the conversation, the best location would have been not to take up the property at the parking lot for fire services and police services, that we had a location that would better suit. Is that, I'm just trying to, I think that's how it unfolded
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's the decision that was made
by council.
by council
Yeah,
after
okay.
discussion. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Sure.
Okay, Corey, no, that's, just
It's not-
wanting
it's
to
not
be
easy
clear.
talk and- It's not easy to talk and debate when you're in another province, you can't see any of you, so.
I can't
Yeah, well, I'll just leave it at that. Perfect.
Thanks, councillors. Perhaps taking Bruce's advice here, I could simply send out an email to council, see who is interested. Those councillors who are interested could meet with Jolene and anyone else involved with the organization, with staff, and then come back and maybe make 2 proposals in addition to the existing location. So the 3 options as a go forward, and council can decide.
Yeah.
Does that work for folks?
Can we include our police services as far as staff is concerned? Because I think that, that's why I want you to stay, Sinclair, because I think that it's important that you have some say, absolutely, some participation in this decision. Yes, and fire services as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So, Justin, you wanna go?
Just as a point, I guess, of history, I think at least those of us that were on the last council will recall that Heather Moyes Park was actually another location, and everyone at the time agreed that that was just a terrible location all around. Just as some more context of the history of the.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. So I will send that out. We'll basically strike an ad hoc committee to come back with those councillors, have been given the opportunity to meet with staff, including police and fire, and with Jolene and her group, and to report back on March 7th, which would be our next committee of the whole meeting. Councillor Adams?
Meredith, can whoever meets with them, whatever the group makeup is, can they be asked for an update on their not-for-profit so that we can?
Certainly, yeah.
I mean, if they need, yeah, yeah, because if they need help with paperwork or something, like, you know, there might be something that somebody can do to.
Absolutely, and this is one of those projects that all community pulls together in different capacities, for sure.
It's a wonderful project, so.
Yep. Okay, so like I said, I'll send out an email instead of going and picking and choosing and putting people on the spot here who wants to be involved. And then those councillors having the conversations with staff and Jolene's group will report back to council in 1 month's time. Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll move on to item number 7. Once again, a slightly unusual process here. I've got another, just a quick update, just because I've been asked a number of times on this. Thanks, folks. It's just a quick update on the Housing Task Force. And it certainly made an announcement in the election campaign within the first 100 days to appoint a mayor's task force on attainable housing for Summerside. That process, I've met with staff, and that process has begun with respect to setting out the objectives and the vision for that task force. I will be reaching out to council for input and for interest if any councillors want to sit as an active member of that task force, or all those the task force meetings, I think there will be 3 or 4 over the course of a period of months. Will obviously be open to all of council, and there will be appropriate staff there as well. So I did just want to highlight that that is underway. I've set an arbitrary date to myself of 100 days. I think that puts us at what's March 13th, 14th, something in there. The basic mandate here is to be forward-thinking, creative with a focus on solutions involving community expertise, to come forward with recommendations, solid recommendations for council to consider that will help increase housing supply and make housing more attainable across the entire spectrum. If council has individuals who they think would be helpful and would add a useful element to the task force, one as a member or secondarily even as a presenter, because there will certainly be a public presentation component to this. Certainly send them my way in the next few weeks as that comes together, and once staff has had a chance to review the process as well, it will go back out to you. The ultimate objective here is within 6 months of the task force coming together to provide clear recommendations to council, with the opportunity for public input on those recommendations. The task force will be led by a facilitator who will make sure that time is best used and community input is best gathered. And hopefully we will get to a point where we have a housing action plan that will feed into our official plan within the next number of months. So I just wanted to update folks on that because I've been asked. And this is a good opportunity just to put it on the radar, and if anyone has any questions, don't probably have many answers at this point, but certainly reach out anytime or can ask now.
Interested to see how it all.
Me too, Councillor. I'm also interested in how it all comes together. Absolutely. We'll move on to item 8, which is our Stormwater Management Committee. This is a relatively straightforward one. We talked about it before. I will be establishing an ad hoc committee with the purpose of developing and bringing forward a stormwater management, we call ditches, policy that establishes long-term expectations and contributions within the city of Summerside. The objective for the ad hoc committee is to work with city staff and consult with all councillors and prepare 3 policy options and bring those options to council for consideration, discussion, and a vote. The ad hoc committee shall give the public an opportunity to provide written comments during its policy development. The timeline for the ad hoc committee will report back with the 3 options to the committee of the whole on April 4th. The public then will have an opportunity to provide comments at that time. The policy options shall go to council on April 17th for a vote to adopt the policy. There are 2 councillors appointed to the ad hoc committee to do the work to bring it back to everybody else. And as I said earlier, they have to speak to all of the councillors individually and get everybody's feedback. And that is going to be Councillor Snow and Councillor Duran will make up the ad hoc committee. The official appointment of the ad hoc committee will happen in 2 weeks' time at our council meeting. But I'm giving notice here that that ad hoc committee will come together, and the purpose of ad hoc committees are to take one-off issues, deal with them, address them, come back to council, and seek a resolution. Item number 9 is off-site. Yeah, do you have questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot, yeah, sorry.
First of all, thank you very much for not putting me on that committee. I think I might be a little biased. The second big issue I have is I'm not here for the month of April, and I would like to see that postponed until May.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm
make
going
sure
to be
you have
gone the
it.
first 3 weeks of April, and since I've had to fight for it for the last number of years, I'd like to at least be part of the conversation. Thank you. And the other part is, I hope that the process is going to have a public meeting for the residents of Summerside. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor McDougall, that was by mistake, not intent.
Oh, I know.
So,
So
There's no draw anything. So that would be the first committee of the whole meeting of May, which would probably be closer to the 7th. I'm not sure. That would be our, we'll check on the calendar. May 9th then would be? May 2nd, Ryan?
Committee of the whole.
Yeah, committee of the whole, yep, sorry.
Back, Bruce? All candid and-
Okay, May 2nd it is. Councilors Duran and Snow, you have a little bit extra time. Anyhow, look forward to that.
Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome, Corey.
Are we okay to move on to item 9? Item 9, Councilor Duran bringing forward off-site signage discussion.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I will note that this came to me, I guess, as a counselor and not as a working member of the sign industry. So there's no conflict here. I don't make money per sign anyway, so. And I wish Linda or Aaron would have been here, but I guess I didn't, request that they would be, so. But I think I have a handle on, what's going on here. So, basically, if you don't know, everyone, the city has a off-site signage policy, and what that means is a sign that you would put on your business's property, whether digital or not. It could be one of those reader boards or off-site signage kind of refers to being able to advertise third parties that are not located on that property. So, we have the ones at Reed's Corner. We have the one at by White Oak Cellars and the one by Superstore where companies pay to advertise on those signs. So, and I think there's one up on Roger Wells' property as well. So the old bag company building. So the city in its policies has stated that a maximum of 4 of those types of signs would be allowed, and we have the 4. So obviously the city's growing, and there's people that are wanting to install, whether they're electronic or otherwise, and have advertisements running. There was one particular application they wanted to just advertise nonprofit information on it, but the city policy doesn't say, it doesn't matter if it's nonprofit or if it's actual businesses advertising. So just I think the desire is there maybe to revisit what our quota is in the city, since the city is expanding, and we certainly don't want to look like like a Las Vegas Strip or anything like that, but. Or maybe we do, I don't know. But I just wanted to sort of initiate that going forward, since I know we're visiting our official plan and we're growing, and, I don't know. I'd like to hear from staff as well, but just to see if there's a desire around council to maybe up that number going forward. And I'll kind of throw that out there, and we can chat about it, or we can wait until maybe to have some staff present from tech services.
Why don't you ask to put down tech
We
services?
can,
I'd move that to tech services so we could initiate the discussion.
move it to tech services, like at a monthly meeting?
At a committee meeting, yeah, and have tech
Yeah, well, I guess our committee meetings now, they don't really have it broken down into,
No, but
departments is
you
just
could
a-
ask staff to be here to,
yeah.
yeah.
If there's a consensus to have a chat about it, I mean, there might be a overwhelming desire to leave it at 4 tonight and then not move on, but I know there has been an application come in, where it was denied because we have reached the quota, and.
Was there a sign, was there a size also to do?
Yeah, oh, yeah, the whole signage policy, it has sizes and sight triangles when you're at an intersection and that sort of thing, and yeah, no, there's the sign policy, which
Yeah. Oh, I know.
doesn't matter whether it's off-site or on-site, certain sizes and heights and that sort of thing, but then there's the off-site program, which allows you to advertise third-party organizations or businesses on your sign. So maybe it's time to look at both. But there was never any concern with the actual sign policy itself. Nobody's looking to put a 200-foot, billboard up anywhere. It's just, it was the off-site signage program that I was contacted about to see if there was interest in expanding that from 4 to a higher number, so.
One of the hopes in this structure is that, we give you that, council brings forward something for potential discussion, so if everyone said, Councillor Duran, that's something that I don't think council would be interested in, then we don't need to waste staff's time to go and prepare something. So this is a good opportunity if councillors want to weigh in or give any direction to Councillor Duran. Otherwise, I think he would just take that forward with staff and bring forward something.
Change your mind.
Okay, no, that's great. So maybe we can arrange to have officer from Tech Services present for the next one, and we'll dig in a little deeper if there's a. Sounds like there's a consensus to at least look into it. So, okay.
There's certainly not a consensus.
Okay.
We look forward to you coming back with Tech Services to further that discussion there, Councillor. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, which is communications update from Councillor Adams.
Thank you. Since Deputy CIO JP is here, I'll sort of rely on you. We had a meeting, our little group had a meeting to see sort of some issues that were obvious on our social media, in our communications with residents, in various ways. It sort of ended up being the perfect couple weeks because we had like snow, we had the cold, we had some power outages. So there was a lot, and there was a lot of events going on. So it was a good test of the samples of things that we do communicate on a regular basis, but it was in a short period of time. So maybe, JP, do you want to update on, like, since you're day-to-day with it, I may as well.
Yep. So essentially, we have a bit of a working group, Mayor Kutcher and Councillor Adams, myself, and the CAO, just sort of leading the file. The CAO has tasked me to do sort of an initial review of the communications that we currently do as a city, to try and find recommendations on how things can improve in terms of resident communications, our image and our branding, and really to learn more about how we can realign individual departments to be more focused and work more closely together to have a less disjointed kind of communication process. That process has really kind of opened my eyes to some of the gaps we have in terms of some of the communication areas in the city. So it's a big file. It's something that we're trying to wrap our arms around, and it continues to grow. But a lot of work has actually been done already. We've only been looking at it for about 3 weeks, and a lot of things have already kind of come to light. You'll not see initial improvements in some areas right away, because what we need to learn now is what's broken and how we can best repair it as a group. And then over the next 4 months, we'll continue to report back to the working group on some of the successes and some of the challenges, and kind of sometime in May, we'll have a better idea of where we go from there. So, yeah, we're excited to have an opportunity to look into it a little more deeply and learn how we can improve communications to our residents.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just
Councillor
want
Ramsey.
to congratulate John Paul, because this weekend there was tons of information on your site, by the way, regarding the weekend and how it all went and how it all unfolded. And, so I really thought that was, I know that you do communicate well from community services, but this weekend there just seemed to be that extra bit of information there, and I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
And just to add, I think ultimately what will happen, we'll have a communications plan and strategy, and JP and the team and Councillor Adams will report back to council for final approval on how we move forward as communications, and whether there are any gaps that we need to fill in any other way. Okay.
just gotten, like, we've just sort of been doing things the same and adding a little bit here and there, and that's why, you know, things are just a little bit disjointed in some areas, and it's, I mean, we're growing, we have to grow with it, and our comms have to grow with it, and we'll figure it all out. It's good, it's in good hands.
I was very happy on how it was run. I want to thank police services and the fire services for the work that they did. Mayor Dan, Bruce, and I were there both nights. And I want to give a shout out to Mike Martin because he actually brought coffee and donuts.
To who?
Mike Martin.
Oh, Mike, so good. So good.
Yeah, he picked me up both nights, and we went to Tim's, and we got coffee and donuts, and we went over, and they actually helped a lot of people. So I really think there's a need, because we are going to get, climate is changing, we're going to get cold weather events, we're going to get hot weather events, and there's a need.
Thank you, Barbara, and there's going to be a report on that at our next meeting. I had already spoken with their CAO. It did go very well. A lot of us showed up there. We were all there, I think, this weekend, and it was great. There weren't as many as we anticipated. I know you said there was a lot. There was 3 each evening, but that is a lot. One's a lot. So, but you know, the fear is that there was going to be many, 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 and that would have been terrible, you know. So we're pretty well off here in Summerside, and we helped the people that needed to be helped, and so proud of police and fire, and anyway, so there will be a report on that coming up in the next at our next meeting. And as well, we're anticipating our homeless shelter, men's shelter opening here in the very near future that the province has put into Summerside. So that's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just add to
Yeah,
that?
absolutely,
Anybody
Councillor.
else? One of the things that I wanted to point out, Councillor Barb and Bruce and myself were there on Saturday night, so I think the nights were covered. We tried to be there. But the one thing that I do want to just express an appreciation to is for fire services through Chief Ron and the members that were there. I think in those circumstances, when there's calls that have to be made and the accommodations are being looked into and all of that exchange of information, the thing I think that's so impressive is that how calm, cool, and collected they are. And how they deal with it. They don't get all rattled, and like they deal with it because it's already a situation that people have concerns about. But I think they have a very calming presence, and that really came through. And I just want to give them a shout out. Their training really pays off. Thanks.
And also a shout out to all of you councillors who took a difficult decision at a very difficult time. And you know, hats off to all of you for what was. I know it was a in-camera discussion because we were in the middle of budget discussions, but without going into the particulars, it was a very well thought out, very well discussed, very human, very fair discussion, and also to staff who ultimately pulled off that weekend too in a space that we do not. We have not in the past worked on. So you know, at the same time as a Brett Kissel concert. I know there was quite a juxtaposition, but well done to all of you. So very proud to be part of this group. Yeah. Now at this point, we will move into a short in-camera discussion on staffing matters, and that is a full in-camera discussion. So that means only council.
Can we take 5 minutes?
We can take 5 minutes. Yeah. We'll take a